Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab. If you're new, I'm Jody. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Today's experiment is a full face of first impressions using drugstore makeup. I'm trying them in a grab bag form where I have a big bag full of drugstore products that I have been hauling and hoarding. And I wanted to try some of them, and so I figured that doing a full face of first impressions would be a really good way to do that. I'm sort of just reaching in the bag and grabbing the first product of its kind that I see, so it's not completely blind, but sort of. So I thought I would have a little fun that way. At the end of the video, I will go ahead and round up my thoughts on absolutely all the products, and if I have any notes, I will leave them in the comment section and a pinned comment down below. If you're not subscribed already, please consider doing so. I do upload weekly content on makeup and beauty, and I would love to have you. So if you wish to join me on this little experiment, then just keep on watching. All right, so I'm so excited for a little drugstore playtime. I have a bag here. This is actually a Sephora bag. Looks like that. And I use the bag to hold a lot of the drugstore makeup I have been collecting. Here's a peek inside. Not all of these products are new, but they are all new to me. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, the first primer that I got, this is the Milani Prime Perfection Primer. This is supposed to be hydrating and pore minimizing. So let's see. I don't really have any pores, but I definitely have dry skin, and so something hydrating is much appreciated. So right off the bat, this has sort of a minty, kind of like a stale minty gum scent. Like if you've had a stick of gum in your purse for too long. It does feel hydrating, and it has a bit of a cooling sensation, I guess because of the mintiness. And I don't feel that my skin is too sticky, but so far, the first product that is foundation that I found is this Wet n Wild Photofocus foundation. I know I'm probably the last person on the planet to try this. I did pick this up in the shade Golden Beige, and we will see how this applies. I have heard that this has sort of a chemical-y smell, and it's true, it smells a little bit like paint, but it's not anything that's really bothering me right now. I do kind of like this paddle applicator. I think it's interesting, and the shade looks like it's gonna be okay. Okay, so that was the first layer, and I have to say it blended out really nicely, and the color match is really good. I'm going to apply a little bit more in the areas where I need a little bit more coverage, which is usually right here on my cheeks. I have a little bit of redness here, a little bit more on my nose. Right now I would have to say that this is actually light coverage, but then again, I didn't apply a lot. Wow, I can see what all the hype was about. This is really nice. It doesn't feel too heavy on my skin or anything like that. I really like it so far. So for concealer, I have this one from Milani. This is the Retouch and Erase Light Lifting Concealer, and I picked mine up in the shade number 2, which is light. Okay, so this has one of those sponge tip applicators. Let's see how this works. I remember when I picked this up, I really wanted to try it, and I wanted shade number 3, but they didn't have it, so I picked up shade number 2, and I think it's a little bit light, but I'm gonna see if I can make it work. So I think the shade is definitely too light, and it's actually a pretty thick concealer and kind of heavy when comparing it to the foundation. This is okay. I'm afraid to apply a little bit more because it is so light, but my eyes, I have such dark circles. All right, let me try to blend this out with a brush. So far, this is not my favorite concealer. I find it quite drying. I think that it is lighter than my skin tone, but it looks almost gray. I feel like my eyes have a gray cast, and I'm not liking that. I can also really see the wrinkles underneath my eyes, so far, that's not my favorite. At this point, I would set my under eye. I don't really have an under eye setting powder, but I'm going to try this. This is actually a Wet n Wild Coloricon, and this is a bronzer in the shade Reserve Your Cabana. Now, I've heard everybody rave about this particular product and say that it's one of the best bronzers, but this is not going to be a bronzer on me, so we will see if I can use it as under eye setting. Alright, so I'm not liking what this is doing to my under eyes. I'm not really using the powder for its intended purpose, so I'm going to have to play with that a little bit more. To contour, which is what I would do next, I'm going to try to use this product right here by Milani, and this is a cream contour and liquid highlight. Okay, so it says smooth and blendable formulas to sculpt and bring forward your best features. So here's what it looks like. We have a contour shade on the top. Kind of looks like the KKW contour stick. Very small, but this also isn't $50. And then on this side, we have a highlighter, and that's a liquid highlighter with a doe foot applicator. So let's try the contour first. It's very creamy. See how this blends out. All right, it does blend out to almost nothing. I'm going to try applying a little bit more. All right, so it is effective. It's just kind of very light. I would say very subtle. I picked it up in the shade Natural Medium, which is number 3. So I'll go ahead and try the highlight. The highlight actually has a very, very nice shade. It's kind of like a rose gold. I'm going to apply a powder highlight over that. I think that this might be a nicer highlight on no makeup days. Skin is looking a little bit dry, so I'm going to try the Milani Make It Last setting spray. Oh, this smells really nice. To set my face, I'm going to use the Wet n Wild Photofocus pressed powder, and I picked mine up in the shade Tan Beige. All right, the powder looks good. Next, I would do bronzer. I actually did get another one of the Wet n Wild Color Icon bronzers, and this one is in the shade Ticket to Brazil, which I think would be an appropriate bronzing shade for me. So I think that this will help me judge the product a little bit better with its intended purpose. Probably I should not have used it as an under eye setting powder. Who does that? Apparently I do that. It has the very same pattern. It's such a nice pattern in the pan. Whoa, this kicks up a lot of powder. Since my under eyes are so light, I'm gonna try to bronze up a little bit. I like this bronzer. It's really nice. Yeah, this is really nice, and it has that sort of blurring effect. It sets really nice on my skin. And interestingly enough, even after all this powder, the highlight seems to show a little bit more now, which is interesting. Maybe because I put the setting spray. That spray smelled so good. My under eyes are bothering me so much. I'm gonna go ahead and apply some blush. I was able to find one of the new Physicians Formula Butter blushes, and this one is in the shade Rosy Pink, which is a little bit cooler than I would have wanted, but that's the first blush I found, so that's the one that I'm gonna use. This brush, I'm not sure if it's picking it up. Yeah, that's a big difference. Now I went in too heavy. Now the first brush wasn't picking up the product. That's one thing I would say. If at first one brush doesn't pick up your product or it seems to not be working, try a different brush because it could make all the difference. Wow, I went in with a heavy hand. And yet I still keep dabbing in there. Let's try to blend this out. I know that the first ones that they released, people were complaining that they were not pigmented enough. Well, that is certainly not the case with these. Wow. And now for highlight. I've heard great things about this one from Wet n Wild. This is the shimmer palette in the shade Boozy Brunch. It's a pretty pattern. I understand that this was part of the Fergie collection at first, but then they re-released it under a different name. This highlight blends out really, really nicely. Like, it blends into the rest of the makeup pretty seamlessly. I think it does show a little bit of texture though, and I don't have too much texture, so that's my complexion so far. Let's go ahead and do brows. For brows, we're gonna try the NYX Micro Brow Pencil, and I have mine in the shade Ash Brown. It's a little bit thicker than the Anastasia Brow Wiz. I don't know, guys. This is not the best I've done on my brows. I'm not sure if it's the color. I usually clean up my brows using the Sephora Collection brow enhancer. But since I'm doing a full drugstore first impression, I am going to clean it up with some of that Milani concealer. That looks a lot better, I think. To set my brows, I'm going to use this Clear Brow and Lash Mascara from e.l.f. This is dual-sided and it has one side for brows and one side for lashes, although I don't know what the difference between the two would be. This does have one of those clear containers, so you're going to be able to see. I can already see on the spoolie. I know that that's probably going to get gross. Alright, I'm not loving the brows, but they're okay. For my eyeshadow base, I'm going to go in with this one from Milani. This is their eyeshadow primer. I've heard that this is Emily Noel's favorite eyeshadow base. So we'll see how it is. I do trust her recommendations and I enjoy her channel a lot. I picked up the eyeshadow base in the shade 01 Nude. I'm not sure how many shades it comes in, but this is actually pretty nice. It doesn't remind me of any other eyeshadow primer that I have. The closest thing would be the MAC Paint Pot because it does sort of dry down and it does cancel out the color of my lids. So that's interesting. I'm going to set that with the Wet n Wild powder. For my eyeshadow, I'm going to be going in with the e.l.f. eyeshadow palette, and this is Mad for Matte 2. I first saw this on Kathleen Light's channel, and she was really raving about it, and it was sold out for like 2 months after that. But when they restocked, I went ahead and I picked it up, and I'm really excited to try it out. Really nice packaging. So let me bring you in a little closer. You can really see my under eyes now. I think I want to do sort of a blown out eye. Alright, so for my transition, I'm going to go in with this third shade right here. These are really pigmented. Next, I'm going to go in with the shade right next to it, right here in the palette. So far, these are really nice. I can see why she was raving about them. It's like a really nice, basic, warm palette, but the shadows are really nice quality. Alright, next I'm going to go in with this shade right here, sort of a deeper orange shade. Alright, and for my darkest shade, I'm going to go in with this one right here. I'm not having any trouble with fallout or anything like that. I'm really impressed with this palette. Alright, and just to deepen out the outer V just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and go in with that purple color. It's a beautiful color. To highlight my brow bone, I'm going to take a little bit of that lightest shade and put it right underneath my brow bone. I'm going to go ahead and line my lash line with the black from the palette. I'm really impressed with this palette. The shadows just kind of applied themselves. I'm really excited about it. Before I do mascara or anything else, I'm going to go ahead and do the lower lash line. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with that darker shade. Really like it. I'm just disappointed about the concealer. Maybe if I blow out my lower lash line, it won't be as noticeable. I do want to add an inner corner highlight, but there is no shimmery shade in here, so I'm going to use the Wet n Wild highlighter that I used on my face. Alright, for my mascara, I'm going to have to try this one. This is the L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise Mascara, and everybody has been talking about this, so I had to check it out for myself. I got the shade Blackest Black. Did not get the waterproof one because I heard that one was not as good. The wand on this is gigantic. I have very small eyes too, so... Alright, so you guys tell me. This one has mascara and this one doesn't. I think it's okay, but I mean, I'm not losing it over it. I guess I didn't use lash primer, and you guys know I always use lash primer. I think it makes a big difference, but I don't have a primer from the drugstore right now, so probably that's what I should do and see if it makes a difference. I'll definitely keep playing with it and use it over my MAC primer that I have right now and see if that makes any difference. But so far, I mean, I think it's okay as far as mascaras go, but it is definitely not going to replace any of my favorites. All right, so it's time for lipstick. This is the Milani lipstick in the shade Orange Gina. Well, actually, let me get a lip liner. So the first one I pulled out is the Wet n Wild gel lip liner, but this one is in the shade Bear to Comment. I think this is a nude, and I'm not sure that it will work with this lip color. This is just gliding over my lips. This is good stuff. I really like that. This smells like Laffy Taffy. All right, so I have 17 products on my face, and it is time for the roundup. Let's go ahead and start with the winners that really impressed me. The first thing is going to be the eyeshadow palette. I was super impressed with how these blended. I was super impressed with the look that I came up with. I think the colors applied beautifully. It's a really nice option for an all matte eyeshadow palette. It's very affordable. The only catch is that I believe that this one is only available online at the e.l.f. website. It's very nice, sturdy packaging, travel friendly, versatile. The colors go on beautifully. I really liked it. This was the thing that impressed me the most out of everything that I tried. The next thing that made a really great impression was actually the Milani eyeshadow primer. I learned about this product from Emily Noel. She said that it was one of her favorite eyeshadow primers, and she always uses this as a base when she's doing her makeup tutorials. And I was really surprised to see that it really blinks out my eyes. And also, it's a little bit mattifying, so it dries down sort of like a MAC paint pot, and it just creates a really nice base for the eyeshadow. Of course, this is only based on my first impression. If anything changes, I will leave a note in the description box below or in a pinned comment, but so far this was pretty awesome. The next thing that I really enjoyed was the Milani Make It Last Prime, Correct, and Set 16-hour setting spray. Now, the first thing I noticed is even though this is a fairly small bottle, you do get 2 fluid ounces, and this smells so good. It smells sweet, but in a fresh way, not in like an overpowering way. It set my makeup really nice. It worked really well. So far, I am really impressed with this guy. The next thing that I really enjoyed was this bronzer. It really leaves a very nice sheen to your face. This one was in the shade Ticket to Brazil. It looks a little bit light, but you can see that it really did bronze up my skin, and it gives a very nice sort of luminizing finish. It does have SPF 15 in it, so I don't know about the flashback, but I like the effect that it did, especially because my foundation was looking a little bit too light after I applied the concealer. So this was a win. Another thing that I did like was the foundation. I think that this is like a $5 foundation, and I got mine in the shade Golden Beige, and it applied really nicely. I think that I'm going to continue to try using this with some of my other primers, but so far I think that it gave my face a very nice finish. It feels very lightweight. It doesn't feel heavy. It does settle a little bit into my fine lines, but I have a little bit more mature skin, and so I have fine lines, and so that's where my foundation goes. So far I've been really impressed, and so this one gets a thumbs up for me. And the last one that was pretty good was the Wet n Wild To Reflect Shimmer Palette, and this, I was really surprised because it's hard to imagine that it's a highlight, but that is exactly what it is. It's very smooth powder, and the highlight is sort of a gold finish. So you could see it right there. You can see that it creates a very natural highlight. If you have texture, this might begin to emphasize it, because I did notice that I could see a little bit of texture on my skin when I wore it. Of course, I did layer this over another highlight, so I don't know if it's that I just have too many products, but upon first impression, this was pretty good and it gives a really nice luminous glow. The next product that was a win was this lip liner. Now, even though you can't really see the lip liner because it wasn't super complementary with my lip color, when I was trying it out, it was creamy. It just went on so smoothly despite the fact that my lips are a little bit dry. It is one of the twist up liners, and this one is from Wet n Wild, and I have this one in the shade Bear to Comment, and it's just a very nice pinky nude shade that you could wear with all your lip colors. I do highly recommend this guy. The Wet n Wild Photofocus pressed powder was also a really nice setting powder. It does sort of remind me of the MAC Next to Nothing powder in the way that it sets my foundation, and also the soft focus look that it gives my face. So I do like that it isn't drying, and it just set my makeup really nice. I don't have a powdery look or anything like that, and so I am enjoying that. The last thing that was good was this e.l.f. Cosmetics eyebrow gel. Now there is a mascara one for lashes right here. I didn't use this one. I used the brow one, and you can tell that it's already starting to get a little bit dirty. So the packaging is not ideal, but I think that this is a nice handy product. It was a couple of dollars only, and it did set my brows nicely. I think it has more of a stiffness to it, but I like that because my eyebrows are a little bit long, and so I need them to stay where I place them, and so this was good. So now on to the products that I thought were just okay. The first one was the brow pencil by NYX Cosmetics. This one was just okay because I was struggling a little bit with my brows, and I'm not sure if it's the color or if it's the consistency, but I was struggling a little bit with my brows, but that happens sometimes, so I'm going to continue to try this. I do like that it has a spoolie on one end and that the pencil is very, very thin, such as like the Anastasia Brow is. One thing I do want to point out is that these two caps are not the same, so be very, very careful. One of them is definitely shorter than the other, if you can see that right there, and the shorter one is the one that goes onto the spoolie. If you try to put the shorter one on the pencil, then you're going to jam the tip. So that's one thing that I don't really like. I think it would have been nice if they had been the same size, because when I'm doing my brows, I throw these off to the side and then I'm doing my thing, and then I'm not really paying attention when I'm putting the caps back on. So just something to note. The next product that was just okay was this primer. I have to experiment with it a little bit more. It's hard to tell how I feel about it right now because I wore both a new primer and a new foundation, but I do like how it was very refreshing on my skin because of that minty, I called it stale mint, but it was a minty scent, and it did sort of spread out very well. It wasn't super sticky, but the foundation went over it nicely, and so far I think this is okay. Another product that was okay was this butter blush from Physicians Formula. I think that the reason why I'm not enjoying this a little bit more right now is more because of the color. Because I was sort of doing the drugstore makeup roulette here, it's not necessarily a shade that I would have picked out for this look since it is so warm, but it does give a nice rosy tint to my cheeks, and I think that because this was from the second edition of the releases, this one is the rosy pink version, this one shows up a lot more on the skin. I know that the first two that were released, a lot of people thought that it didn't show up on the skin, but this one does, and I think it has a very nice rosy glow, and I think with the appropriate makeup look, this one would be nice. The other product that I thought was just okay is the L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise Mascara, and I have mine in the shade Blackest Black. This is not the waterproof version. I heard that the waterproof version is not as nice as this one. Now, this particular mascara seems a little bit dry to me, and also the brush is just enormous. My eyes are very deep set, and it's hard for me to work with brushes like this. This is why I do not own the Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara, because the wand just intimidates me, but this one is a little bit more affordable, so I thought I would try it and see what the fuss is all about, and I guess I still can't see what the fuss is all about. It's okay. I think it did okay with my lashes, as you could see when I applied it, but I don't think it's anything special, and it definitely will not replace my Holy Grail mascaras. The last product that I thought was okay was the Milani lipstick. It is not 100% opaque. It's a little bit transparent, but it is very comfortable and it is very hydrating, so if your lips need a break from liquid lipstick, this is a really nice option. And now lastly, onto the products that I absolutely did not like at all. The worst one of all was this Retouch and Erase Light Lifting Concealer. I don't like this. I didn't really like the sponge applicator. I'm gonna give this one more try, but on first impression, I don't like it. I think it creases and my shade was not correct. It was a little bit too light, and then it oxidizes a little bit gray, which I think it just doesn't help my under eye area. And so I was not impressed with this one, and at this point I would not recommend it, though I will keep trying it and see what happens. So going hand in hand with that one, it's funny, I have to put this one in a fail only because of the way in which I used it. I completely take responsibility for that experiment. I used it to set my under eye because I didn't have an under eye setting powder. I thought that the Wet n Wild one was a little bit too dark, and this was the only thing I had in my little drugstore grab bag. So I used it to set my under eye because if you look at at the shade. Even though this is called a bronzer, this won't bronze me. So this may make me, you know, wash me out or something like that. So I thought it might be brightening underneath my eyes, especially because the powder is very, very smooth and it does have sort of a sheen to it, but I don't recommend this for underneath the eyes. And again, that's not really the product's fault, that's operator error, especially since I did like the bronzer that is in my shade. So I think that I might try this one for setting my entire face, and so I'll keep working on that one. The last and final product was the Milani Contour and Highlight Stick and Liquid. You don't get too much product, but the shade is quite nice for contouring because it has sort of that ashy gray tone to it. It was very creamy and it blends out, but I noticed that when I started bronzing, my contour pretty much disappeared. Wouldn't spend the time to put this on my face to just have it disappeared. I think that because I didn't bronze my nose, it did stay on my nose a little bit better, so I might continue to use it that way. The highlight was a really nice shade. I had the same issue with this as I did the contour side. It just disappeared. So I think that I might use this highlighter on a day where I'm not wearing foundation and I just use cream highlighter. I think that it'll actually be good in that way, but not necessarily under a full face of makeup. That's it for the roundup. Let me know what you thought of the products I tried, if you had a favorite. If you have any tips on how I can use the products that I have, I'm really excited to continue to experiment with them. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful. If you did, please don't forget to give my channel a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Please don't ever be afraid to experiment with makeup because you can always wash it off at the end of the day or immediately if necessary. I hope to see you again soon on my next video. Bye!